Hey guys, good morning. It's me again. I've done a huge amount of work in the past couple days, probably more than I can put in a video, so I think this will be a two-parter, but let's get into it. As usual, I'll start with the show and then I'll move on to the tell. So in terms of in-game, not much has changed. You can see the colors are a bit different. I think I mentioned wanting to change up the colors quite a while ago, but I actually got around to doing that. This is the prison you've been familiar with. It's missing a few things. It's missing the switches and the gates, but still got these objects. I can walk around. It's all good. And yeah, I got a transport stop so I can leave it. Boom! And this is the world map, although it does look a little bit different. I'm going to stop it there. What I was showing off there is adapting the prison level. Instead of loading in a gigantic image and loading it up with collision boxes and hand placing everything like I was before, I've adapted it to the map generation system that I made for the town originally. So you can see what that looks like in input form right here, kind of next to the town. You can see it's a lot simpler than the town's layout, which is great. One advancement I've made from when I made it for the town is object layer that kind of pairs with the tile layer. So the tile layer will dictate mainly how the map looks, and then the objects layer will determine what objects are in the map. I didn't need to do this from the beginning. What I was doing, no, there's so much noise. Yeah, how I had the objects before was I was basically, after the map visually loads, I had a bunch of place pot and place barrels, and I'd give them the coordinates, place the chests in the same way with the chest ID and the NPCs, and then some of the NPCs, I have to give them dialogue, and then some of them have a shop, all that. So there was basically a paired script with all of those. What I wanted to do is stuff like the pot and barrel. They're kind of self-sufficient. They don't need custom information like giving text to an NPC or stock in a shop, for instance, because eventually the rewards you can get from those will be kind of out of a pool based on the area you're in, probably. So that doesn't need to be information attached to each of the objects. So to avoid having to kind of manually go one by one and do this, instead with the prison, you can see even though it had all the pots and barrels, it doesn't have all that extra information. It simply has the one transport tile, which you could have seen at the end, which needs information to tell you, where that tile takes you. But it's handled in this script. So basically I broke up the maps into two kinds. If they have one of these paired object layers, which the town currently does not, even though I drafted one here, it'll read it in just like the tile layer, in the same way compares it to the short strip of colors to determine what each pixel is meant to represent. And then in the place objects here, we live through the width and height as usual, and depending on the color, I've got a simple if else for each of the colors. We will place treasures, and I'm using place treasure and not place pot or place barrel, whatever. It was easier in this kind of instance to set up an official enumerator which has pot, barrel and chest random, which is a new tier of chests, like a lower tier of chests that works kind of like these. That'll make more sense in the future. Next thing I want to talk about, basically a bit more into my plans for making this more into an actual game. So I've made a new world map, complete with little indexes that help me remember what each of the islands are for. You can see the previous one that was here, that was all well and good, but for my needs I've broken it up into a bunch of islands. What I'm going to have the player do, I think, for my first demo scenario basically, is you'll progress through each island when you enter an island. So you start the game in the prison, right? As soon as you leave the prison, you'll end up on one of the islands. So you'll probably end up on number 1 unless I change it somewhere. And then on each island there's access to that town. I'll probably just reuse the same town. I don't want to complicate the town layer for temporary towns. I mean, technically it'll be a different town because I wanted to, every time you progress to a new island, there's a new town with new NPCs that have interesting and helpful stuff to tell you, and refreshed treasure to find, and shop stock, stuff like that. It's like a pit stop between every dungeon. So you'll come onto the island, you can go to the town, and then you can go to one of 2 or one of 3, depending on what island yeah, one of a selection of dungeons, and all of the dungeons will eventually get you to the next island. So for instance, you'd go to island 2 here. It's very hard to see. These are actually different colored dark dots because I'm still using the drawing palette here, but I think I put like the town, the dungeon, and the starting point of each island. I think they're like all the grays, all the very dark colors, so it's very hard to see, but the computer will know what to do, and I will hopefully remember. But yeah, your choice of dungeon, you'll still end up going to the same kind of next island if you finish it, but the type of dungeon will have like varying potential treasure and enemies that you fight. There'll be some kind of criteria that each of them go by, but I won't make it super obvious. It'll be something that, you know, people can have a few tries at and see if they can learn what abilities they have access to and learn what the different dungeons actually change, and they can, you know, formulate a strategy for beating the whole demo. That's kind of my goal with this. The first demo I want to do is a small slice of how the progress of the game will be. So with most of these old RPGs, it dips between, you know, overworld, going through a dungeon, going through a town, and organizing your party with the equipment and stuff that you find. So unless I change things, this may just be the map of the first demo. Cool guys, today's episode was technically quite simple, but the next episode definitely won't be. What I wanted to establish here was the separation of the object layer from the tile layer, because it's going to be very much talked about in the next episode. So stay tuned for the epic part 2 of part 37 of SJFS, the best video game project in the world. Let's go, boys. Thanks guys, catch you in 2. Peace.